It's time for white people to talk and figure some things out. So tonight I'm speaking to, I mean, honestly, as white a panelist I think I could find. I have an Andrew, a Lisa, and a Chip. I think at its core, I think white people have, wait a minute, white people have put blame on black people for the position that they are in, and then believe that white people will lose something in order for black people to gain it. And that's what creates that resentment and difficulty to overcome.
Significant amount of white people in the United States of America see race relations through a colorblind lens. And I don't mean that whites don't see race. They see someone that's black or Asian. But they don't in any way attach any meaning to the color in affecting life chances.
Where I come from is that this system of white supremacy has done such a good job of teaching us as white people.
White people have,
that racism is bad. And when we talk about racism, we're talking about your character flaw. If we say you're racist, it's a character flaw. I'm bad, and I know I'm not bad. I think I'm a good person. I think I'm a nice person. And I know that I am racist. And I know that I'm racist because I, every single day, uphold the systems and the structures of racism.
Do you think because it always gets framed on that moral level, right? Does the moral qualifying of it make resentment the natural outcome of that?
I think one of the issues is that it's very hard to agree with some of the very premises that are being expressed tonight. As if everything is already settled. We know this country is, for example, a white supremacy. Well, I don't believe that. I think it's possibly the most absurd hyperbole I've ever heard. I'm an immigrant, so I have a slightly different view of this. I can tell you, America in 2022 is the most multiracial, multicultural, tolerant, diverse melting pot that has ever existed on planet Earth, and there is no other place on Earth even like it. That's why 86% of our immigrants are non-white.
Let me ask you a question, though, Andrew, because I think you bring up an interesting point, and we might be getting hung up on semantics. So the fact that you're an immigrant speaks volumes. It means you chose to come here. But America didn't start that way for black people. They didn't immigrate here. They were living somewhere else, and they were kidnapped and raped and murdered and taken here. And so for you to just say this is a magnificent place that doesn't have racism is actually, I think, more of a foundational lie than anything else.
I didn't say that. I did not say that.
You said that it's the most hyperbole.
That racism doesn't exist. I said the term white supremacy is an absurd hyperbole. For most people, that means the KKK. It means no rights for minorities.
When you say to me, I don't get how this exists, I'm just having trouble figuring out, like, I mean, you're a bright guy. Like, what the fuck are you talking about?
Exactly.
Honestly, like, I don't know. So, Chip, you jump in. And I don't mean to attack you. Well, I'm just confused.
I don't know, I get Andrew, I know Andrew's history, but, like, I don't even remotely understand what he's saying about American history, because it is not in any way, people that have studied it, this is nothing like what he's talking about.
No one is denying this awful history, nor is anyone denying.
Great. So let's talk productively about what we do about it. I think the conversation is then this. We have an awful history. Its remnants are still felt today.
We also have a great history, John.
Say it again?
We also have a great history.
But I think you're minimizing it. You're suggesting that because
I think by calling today white supremacy, you are minimizing actual white supremacy. You have an incredible diversity to condemn all American history as racist.
I disagree that they're generalizing all white people.
But white people, wait a minute. White people have.
The systems that were racist, that were put in place, that...
Systems.
Yes. The systems that were put in place.
I'd like you to explain exactly what they are.
Well, I thought I explained it earlier about the GI Bill and about the New Deal.
That's very simple. That's one thing. I want to know about these systems.
I just explained it. Housing,
That's
food.
One, and I've agreed that.
Andrew, you're not living on the same fucking planet we are. Honestly. I really don't think you are.
I think you are not living in the planet most Americans are, which is why this kind of extremism, this anti-white extremism, is losing popular support, is creating a backlash, is going to elect Republicans and undo a lot of the good you think you're doing.
This is what happens when you don't talk about it. This is what happens when white people don't talk about it, is you have racist dog whistle tropes like this.
Racist.
That actually perpetuate and perpetuate and perpetuate. So I did not come on this show to sit here and argue with another white man. That's one of the reasons that we don't even engage with white men at Race to Dinner. You know, because quite honestly, if white men were going to do something about racism, you had 400 years. You could have done it. Okay? So
I am 58 years old.
I'm shutting you down right now.
I am not responsible for anyone before me.
The point is, I'm so tired of just engaging in this conversation and this deep hurt that Andrew has about talking about racism. And Chip, God bless you, but I'm gonna put everybody in the thing. All of us white people do this.
But white people, wait a minute. White people have, but white people, wait a minute. White people have.
I don't care if we say we're abolitionists. I don't care if we say we're progressive. I don't care if we're literally members of the KKK.
Wait, what?
I don't care if we say we're progressive. I don't care if we're literally members of the KKK. Every single white person upholds these systems and structures of white supremacy, and we have got to talk about it.
Good deal.
If I could finger snap, I would finger snap right now.
Good deal.
Let's remove it then from the...
calling me a racist, John.
You've been doing a pretty good job with it yourself there, so... But Andrew, you're taking words out of context and blowing them out of proportion so that you don't have to deal with having to figure out a way to deconstruct the barriers that were put in place for black people in this country and give them a better chance.
Your opening segment
was brilliant. Brilliant. Yes.
Biggest reductionist, one-sided, completely biased position.
Yes, Andrew, you are correct.
When I watched it, I wondered, have you lived in the same country as everybody else for the last 30 years? It was a straw man that you created.
Andrew.
A total straw man.
You can appreciate
in which every white person was bad.
Let me just stop for a second.
Every black person had the same position.
You can appreciate where you live. You can love where you live. And you can honestly diagnose a terrible, terrible illness that has lived in this beautiful place that you call home and love, that you believe has metastasized into a cancer that can kill the very thing that you believe in so deeply about this country. To improve that place and make it into the country that it stated it was in its founding documents is the duty of everybody who lives here. So do not tell me who I am or what I believe, a motherfucker.
I'm just saying that you created a
I apologize. When you get older, it's harder to control the emotions. But let's talk about solutions.
The first thing that we need to understand is that all of us white people.
But white people, wait a minute. White people have
A responsibility to engage in these conversations regularly.
But when it gets hot like this, what do you do? How do you back out of that and remind everybody, like, hey, okay, let's take a breath. I think we're all decent, good-hearted people who are trying to do the right thing. Andrew, you're not living on the same fucking planet we are.
You know, I get Andrew, I know Andrew's history, but, like, I don't even remotely understand what he's saying.
You have racist dog whistle tropes like this. I think that we have to know that we have to hold people accountable, but we also have to hold them with grace and with compassion. No,
8 years old.
I'm shutting you down right now. We don't even engage with white men at Race to Dinner. I don't care if we're literally members of the KKK. You have racist dog whistle tropes like this.
Andrew, I would think that's something actually that might appeal to you in terms of rebuilding infrastructure and things, because that's not based on it, but it's rebuilding areas that are entrenched in poverty and those things.
It can be, absolutely, yes. But I'm sorry to say, I think just white people talking about this endlessly is not going to help actual Black Americans who would deal with it. I have certain ideas about that. I think we need to focus intensely on young education. I think education is crucial. I think figuring out a way to help Black kids have a stable family. The truth is,
yes,
if you have a two-parent married home, you're going to
say something to you, Andrew.
You really are.
I didn't grow up in a stable family. I grew up in a single-parent family.
Well, neither did.
And so,
I'm just telling you the data. The data is that 30% of African Americans don't have this. It's the biggest factor in getting people into college and succeeding in life. And if you ignore it, we're going to let these Black kids down.
I feel like your defensiveness and the tropes that you use about the Black family being the cause of entrenched poverty in that community ignores why those families are broken up in the first place, and that's mass incarceration, and that's the way that we view the crack epidemic, and that's the economic opportunity over generations that was defined. So you keep trying to remove things from their historical bearings, and I just think that's...
No.
If you can't diagnose the problem, you can't fix it.
We need to think about how we help the family restructure itself, because it's key. It's key.
Let's boil it down then. Why do you think the family got that way?
Because I do think it wasn't marriage became less important. Sex outside of marriage came more for all of us.
But you're not talking about all of us, Andrew. You're talking about...
No, but we also...
You're talking about
what I'm saying is that when you look at white families today, you see the same thing.
Oh, so you're upset about that as well?
Of course I am. I'm not blaming someone. This is a family question. Why don't Black you going to do better if your parents stayed home and take care of you until you leave home? It's just a fact.
How are you supposed to do that when you work a low-income job and you don't have childcare?
Well, it's really tough, which is why we need to address that. Absolutely.
But that's what we just talked about.
Of course we do, and that's important. I agree. I would spend more on that. I'd spend more on schooling. I would spend more on childcare. But I do not think you can dismiss culture.
So that's the point that I'm getting to, Andrew, which I think you've been dodging around. What do you mean by culture?
I mean a culture in which the family unit is not as strong as it might be, and in which the sense of making it in America is regarded as something that might not be.
You're not talking about everybody.
That's the source of a lot of our problems.
You're talking about Black people. You're talking about
what I'm saying is that when you look at white families today, you see the same thing.
Oh, so you're upset about that as well?
Of course I am.
Okay,
I'm not blaming someone. This is a family question.
You seem to feel like somehow Black culture is uniquely destructive to family. Why?
I don't, to be honest with you, I'm just telling you that's what is the truth. That 30% are still born out of wedlock. It's only born out of wedlock. I mean, it's a complicated question.
Well, that's why I'm asking you to explain it. Tell me.
It's also a function of... Well, I think it's a function of social conservatism losing its grip in African-American communities. In the 1930s, the family retention rate, the marriage rate, was, I think, in the 80s, 80%. If it was 80% in Harlem in 1928, and it's only 30% now, We need to get it back to where it was, to have a better chance for kids, for black kids to succeed. That's what I'm talking about.
Because you care about black kids.
So we'll look into that.
Good, Teal. Otter, thanks. Okay, that's all my food, Otter.